Welcome back. Let's talk about some of the things we've highlighted during Trend that has to do with those girls you saw returning back, courtesy of everybody that played a key role in bringing them back to the country because of, call it regular migration or being deceived into better opportunities or greener pasture in that sense, but found out to be a gory, very painful situation, and now they've been rescued in that sense. We're bringing in the CEO, National Commissioner for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons, Mr. Tijani Aliyu Ahmad. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Ahmad, thank you so much for coming on the program.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Let's begin from the video we saw. I'm sure you were seeing, perhaps we were watching that video, seeing those girls that have been brought back from Côte d'Ivoire, and this is just not too far away African country, even if it's some distance away from here. The desperate situation people find themselves just to get, life better for themselves and their families. But I want your initial comments beyond what we've seen as to the state of those girls as we speak right now.
Thank you very much. You see, what we have always been talking is about this issue of irregular migration. Irregular migration where Nigerians are beginning to leave this country without following due process. And sometimes as they leave, they meet their deaths on the Mediterranean Sea. And sometimes, of course, they play rough roads as they are moving. Once you decided to leave the country in an irregular manner, of course, definitely such situation will happen, where you will be returned without any dignity or safety. And that's why we have been advocating. And now, as part of our ways of providing advocacy, we have now linked up or tried to link up with some of these universities where you can get some of these young girls and boys who are always willing to leave this country for seeking for greener pasture. Sometimes it doesn't pay. So I think with the inclusion of Nigeria as a member of the Rabat process, where issues concerning migration governance is being discussed, I think to some large extent they will try to solve some of these problems. And we are also calling to parents, members of our Nigerian community to please always provide advocacy, enough advocacy for the movement of our children out of this country. It hasn't been paying well. Within the few months back, we have returned not less than 5,000 Nigerians from Tripoli, Libya, from Sudan, from Niger, from Chad. This is the job that we have been doing for the last 6 months now. I think with the ways and means now that the Commission is trying to follow through advocacy, we hope that this kind of situation will drastically reduce. But we shouldn't forget the fact that why we have this kind of chunk of our Nigerian youth living in this country as either migrants or refugees. Of course, security situations also is part of the causes of these problems. Take, for instance, when we have the Boko Haram, many of our Nigerians left out of this country to the neighboring countries, Niger, Cameroon, Chad. As I'm speaking with you this morning, we have no less than 54,000 Nigerians that are in Cameroon as refugees. And we also have some of them in Chad and Niger. Of course, with the help and assistance and facilitation by His Excellency, the Governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum, who has been doing the best that he could to ensure that some of these Nigerians that are playing refugees in Cameroon,
right,
in Chad and in Niger are returned back to Nigeria.
Well, there's a lot of there's a lot to unpack here, really, and I wanted to find out a step-by-step, analysis of this and who dropped the ball where, so we can diagnose the issues properly. Because I know it's a mix of government and society. Right, so you had these people who heard that there were better job opportunities somewhere else, in this case, Cote d'Ivoire. We've heard that there are some in Burkina Faso, in Mali, even Ghana. So it spreads across, right? So they heard that there's better job opportunities. And these ladies, most of them ladies, said, fine, let's go either work in a supermarket, as some have said, in a restaurant, some on the farms. We've heard things like that. But they go through that process. I don't know what process they go through, but that's why you have government. That's why you have these authorities who go through the papers, go through the documents, go through the employment letters or the employment offer and say, this is legit, this is not, this is a true company, this is not, this is possibly trafficking, this is not. You have authorities there, right? But that didn't quite happen. Maybe it did or it didn't happen. Anyway, they got there. And things changed. Some of them were forced to get married to people they didn't want to get married to, or forced to sleep with people, or the terms were changed. Again, there are authorities there. There are liaison offices of Nigeria in those countries. So when you look at this whole chain, where do you see the ball being dropped? I want us to fix them, or at least speak about fixing them on the show this morning.
Oh, all right, you see, when you talk about this kind of movement, where these young girls and boys are living out of this country in an irregular manner, sometimes it's a result of deceit from individuals within the Nigerian community. They will try to deceive these young individuals to say that there are works in this place and you're going to be paid in some manner. Then these young ones get deceived, and they leave the country. As soon as they arrive there, of course, in some cases, the job is not there. It's a kind of trafficking, but in a different way, by convincing the younger ones, particularly women. They deceive them and carry them up. And at the same time, after arriving, there's no job there to give them. This is the problem we are facing. Of course, at the time they are leaving, nobody will know where they are going. They are being sponsored by individuals, because when you look at them, most of them don't have any money to travel even to Lagos, to place of traveling out of the country. But there are individuals. This is their job, and we are trying to trace them. Any moment we get rid of them, I think we'll have a clean slate of movement. But however, sometimes some of these young girls, they are not skilled. So that's why as soon as they get there, they got involved into washing plates, working in the hotels, working in the restaurants. This is the situation. But you know, when you are living, when you don't inform us, when we were not aware of where we are going at the destination, we can't do anything until one situation becomes precarious to them. Then that is when we're beginning to have calls from outside the country to say that you have your Nigerians here in Libya who are living, they don't have where to go, hunger everywhere. Sometimes the IOM, we have to go through the IOM and then beginning to return them back to the country. This is the real situation. But don't forget that apart from this deceit that is being carried out by some individuals to our younger ones, we also have the problem of insecurity that we used to have some few years back, where most of our Nigerians youth live out of this country. Of course, some in search for greener pasture, but some were forcibly out of the country as a result of insecurity. But we thank God now the security situation has now improved, drastically improved. And some of them were beginning to understand that they want to come back to their mother country so that they can stay here and salvage the country together. And that is the process now we are now going into by making requests to the federal government to provide us food funds so that we can return some of these refugees, some of these
so Mr. Ahmed,
who have been stocked out there.
Yeah, Mr. Ahmed, so let me even piggyback on what my colleague Kyle has said, and I don't know whether you really answered the question. So perhaps let me put it differently. Who should be held accountable in this sense? And in answering that question, do we even have enough manpower to be able to do the due diligence we're supposed to do to protect Nigerian citizens? Because most of the time what we see are these girls, you know, videos being sent out either individually or by some good Nigerians who raise alarm that certain people are in certain prisons or they are somewhere held against their will, they would like to come back, and then Nigerian government or private individuals come and rally to bring them back. So we're seeing more of reactions than proactive measures, at least on television. And if something is happening behind the scene, we would like to know. So the question again is, who are we going to hold? Is it that the system is not efficient enough in terms of resources and manpower to be able to check on the welfare of citizens so that these things are reduced to the barest minimum, despite whatever the economic situation is? We're not the only ones who have economic situation. We have people who have economic situations around the world as well. Let's not compare ourselves with the worst scenarios like Somalia and the rest. We are a bit more stable, or a lot more stable, I should say, than some of these other countries. So is it manpower problem? Is it resources problem here?
No. I don't want to believe that it is manpower problem, but it's something to have with belief. No matter what you do, no matter what government provided, there are still people who believe that if they live out of this country, they will live better. So in that situation, there's nothing one can do about it. But the fact still remains that the individuals who became who deceived the youth, I think is where the issue lies. You will convince somebody to tell him that you have a job to provide to him, and he is looking for one. He doesn't have one. Although the government is making effort now to ensure that our Nigerian youth are gainfully employed. But however, there are people who still have the belief in them to say that when they leave this country, one, they are going to earn more than what they are going to earn in this country, forgetting about their safety. So in this kind of situation, there's nothing one can do. Government has been trying its best. There are security agencies all over. In the airport, we have our immigration officers who provide enough checking. But if they checked and you have your paper and you have your this, there's nothing they can do. They have to allow you to move, provided if you don't commit any offense within the period under checking. But as soon as you leave out of this country, of course, we have less thing to do because already they are out there. It was when they get there now, they will find out that what has taken them out of this country is no longer there. So they will now feel that they have been deceived. But in that situation, they cannot bring themselves back home again. Already they are they are already in a precarious situations. And this is the area now will now get information to say that people are there living in Libya or in Niger or in Chad who are out of this country seeking for greener pasture. But as soon as they reach there, the job is no longer there. And they will need to return back home. They don't have money. They don't have food. And this is where we will now come in. Because by the time they are living, we are not aware that as they are living in the city manner. We thought maybe they live in the normal way everybody can travel out in a clear but however, there's nothing we can do because they are already there and they are in a precarious situation. We cannot say we will leave them. We have to find a way of returning them back to the country. And this is the effort the federal government has been making for about 6 months.
When you say we had to bring them back, maybe you can speak to us about the arrangement with Air Peace, right? Who was responsible for the cost of bringing these girls back? Because from what we've seen time and again, it looks like it's more of public-spirited individuals.
What we are doing...
pardon me. So it looks like it's more public-spirited individuals or, you know, airlines like Air Peace that really bear the main cost. So what role did the federal government play? How much did you pay for their flights? Did you pay Air Peace for this, or it was just solely Air Peace's philanthropic work?
You see, in a situation like this, it's no longer the issue of the federal government funding, but we have our own arrangement with the International Organization for Migration. In most cases, they assist in returning them back to the country. And that's why within the last 6 months, I have told you, we have a lot of returnees through the efforts and assistance by the International Organization for Migration, IOM.
Right. But my question is, for this particular one, clearly the federal government didn't pay for the flights. It was air peace. But I want you to add to the response. Perhaps you want to speak to that yet again, if you have another angle to this. So how do we then contextualize the roles of the different agencies? So you have your agency on the one hand, that's the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons, IDPs. There's NAPTIP, you know, the prohibition of trafficking in persons.
Yes.
There is even the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM. So who does what? What do you do? Where does your work stop? What does NAPTIP do? Where does its work stop? What does NIDCOM do in this context? And where does its work stop?
You see, when it comes the issue of trafficking, of course, it's not the responsibility of the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons. But we provide assistance too. But the lead agency is NAPTIP. So those ones that have been trafficked out of this country, it's not the responsibility of the National Commission to return them, but rather the NAPTIP. And I'm sure this one you are speaking about, the air peace, it should be the NAPTIP, not National Commissions for Refugees.
All right, Mr. Ahmad, let's talk about consequence for the people who are pushing this. Just like the NDLA has done their bits, we always refer to them because at least we see those reports and all of that. We're not saying other agencies are not doing anything, but we'd like to know what it's in terms of apprehending these perpetrators in that sense, in terms of prosecution. What can you say about it? What record do you have to maybe share with us, just like we've seen in other agencies, so that we know that there's work being done rather than just reacting and reacting and reacting?
No, you see, when you talk about trafficking, it's not our responsibility. Maybe you can discuss that with the NAPTIP. But we are concerned about refugees, migrants, and internally displaced persons. But when you talk about migrants, people that live out of this country, migrated out of this country, you know there are so many reasons why people migrate. Of course, I've told you, some looking for greener pasture, and the other ones as a result of being forced out of the country because of insecurity. This is the area, like this one that I'm seeing, I think that is the responsibility of NAPTIP, not the National Commissions for Refugees.
No, Mr. Tisha, I understand you perfectly. I know you're in charge of migrants, refugees, and IDP, but I'm sure you're working in collaboration. This is more like when it has finally happened, it's now on your decks to handle. So when you get to that conversation, it's just like, won't you be worried as you're in charge of IDP, and then we have, I don't know how many million IDPs we have, and then this number starts growing exponentially, maybe from 2 million somewhere to 8 million somewhere else. Are you not going to ask questions about what exactly is going on and what conversations are going on to reduce the numbers? Because these are citizens of the country and they have a right to human dignity.
You have reducing the refugees or internally displaced persons?
I'm just using the IDPs as an example in that sense. You know, you cover migrants, refugees, and internally displaced persons. I'm saying we know what causes the issue of IDPs, insecurity. We have an understanding of what causes the issue of migration and refugees. So I'm just saying that in your conversation, you don't work in isolation. What report can you give to us in relation with what you do with NAPTIP as to what measure has been put in place to reduce the burden on you to always have to deal with these issues?
You see, in the issue of reducing the burden, I've told you that we are now in collaboration with some universities, because this issue of going out of this country through irregular means, we need to have to find a way of ensuring that we reduce the issue as practicable as possible. And that's why we engage in collaboration with the National State University, KEFI, on coming up with an institute, because when you want to catch them, you have to catch them young, and to catch them young, you go to the universities where most of these young ones are there. As soon as they completed their studies, they're beginning to living out of this country. So that is why we had to go to the university level in order to provide enough advocacy through the university, through the Center for Studies here in Abuja, to make sure that advocacy is being put into play. Otherwise, most of these our young will not understand if they want to live out of this country for this is how they will go. If you want to go the other way, this is how they should go. But when you talk about trafficking, that is one of the major problems. In trafficking, you might not know who is arranging what until when it happens. Because usually before you get to understand that people are being trafficked, it's only when they reach the destination. It is now, you will now beginning to have calls. But as government, as a representative of government, in liaison with the national, the NAPTIP, the Diaspora Commission, we have been trying to link up with our international partners, particularly the IOM, into ensuring that these people that are being trafficked out of this country, they were returned back to the country.
All right.
When to live and where to go. At that point, we may not know.
Okay, Mr. Tijani, I think your point is well noted. We will continue to follow up on this conversation. We just expect government to do more. There's enough technology. There are examples around the world that we can, take a leaf from to do better. But must commend you for the little you've done. Tijani Ali Ahmed is the CEO of the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to another very important conversation that has to do with an alarm being raised some time ago about egg donation by university undergraduate, the females, and the danger it portends. Maybe it has become some sort of an industry and a hustle, but we need to talk about its consequence in the long run. Join us again in just a moment.